Sir James Cleverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Foreign Secretary, concede now that the international community's unwillingness to take robust action through things like snapback and the JCPOA mechanism is part of the reason why Israel felt the need to take the initial strikes and for America to do likewise? I agree that ultimately diplomatic means will be the only long-term resolution to this, but that's not just about asking nicely for Iran to put its nuclear weapons away. It is about enforcing them and making sure they do through mechanisms. So will he ensure that if we're not going to be involved in military action, I understand the reason why we might not want to do that, we will ensure robust action is taken underpinned by things that will force Iran to do the right thing rather than just hoping that they will do the right thing.
Foreign Secretary.
Well, I'm grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman, and I know that he knows how difficult it is dealing with Iran. He will remember that under JCPOA, they were allowed to enrich to 3.67%. 3.67. And today, they're at 60%. And the question is, how could that possibly be for civilian use? And I challenged the foreign minister from Iran about this on Friday. We've had 7 rounds of negotiations with the Iranians, and those rounds begun under his government, and he would have been Foreign Secretary for a period when those begun, and they have obfuscated, they have deceived, and the time now is to get real.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Foreign Secretary has said that Iran must not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. So does he therefore support the recent targeted strikes by the United States and Israel on Iranian nuclear facilities, yes or no? And if not, can he explain how exactly that inaction would have curtailed Iran's nuclear ambitions?
Foreign Secretary.
I'm afraid I'm not able to give an assessment at this stage of the effectiveness of that action, and neither is the United States. And the Honourable Lady may think that that is a binary question. I don't believe it is a binary question. What the UK is engaged in is diplomacy. And working, of course, with our closest ally, the United States.
Sir Julian Lewis.
As usual, I agree with much of what the Foreign Secretary has to say, but I do have to ask him, how many times must a terrorist-funding, fanatical regime threaten to wipe another country from the face of the earth before a government advised by Lord Hermer of Chagos acknowledges that military action to delay and degrade its nuclear weapons program is both ethically and legally justifiable?
Foreign Secretary.
I simply say to the Right Honourable Gentleman, and I say this with all respect, there is a convention in our country about the very important role that Attorney Generals play in our government, able to give government advice when asked for. It happens under all governments, and I don't really recognise the caricature that I've heard or some of the reports. And I want to make it crystal clear, we were not involved in this action, and therefore, really, some of what's being said is wholly beyond the pale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Foreign Secretary has confirmed that Britain was not involved in the strikes on Iran. Will he also confirm whether or not the US administration sought permission to use Diego Garcia as the launch point for these strikes? If it was sought and was denied, on what basis did the Prime Minister deny permission? And if it wasn't sought, what does it say about the UK-US relationship that America would rather fly around the world from Missouri than launch from Diego Garcia?
Foreign Secretary.
They did not seek that advice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For a lot of people watching and worrying over the weekend, they'll have seen many of the hallmarks of Iraq. Yet, despite that, The Foreign Secretary can't tell us whether he believes these strikes were the right thing to do or not. The Foreign Secretary can't tell us whether he believes that these strikes were legal or not. And the Foreign Secretary has failed today to outline whether this House would be given a vote on any potential military action in this conflict. Is he purposely treating the public as fools?
Foreign Secretary.
I've got to say to the honourable gentleman, he may just have got a soundbite, but I'm really on the nuclear question. I'm not going to take lecturing from the honourable gentleman. I'm afraid he's got a very sorry record in relation to that very serious matter. We have been very clear that diplomacy is the way, that de-escalation is our position. That's what you pursue if you're serious about foreign policy, and I'd recommend our approach to the honourable gentleman.
Byline.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's good news that the Home Secretary has finally decided, reportedly, to prescribe the treacherous terrorist group Palestinian Action. Now, given that she's done that at great speed after the attack recently, and the IRGC have conducted attacks or attempted attacks on this country multiple times, will he now use his powers to persuade the Home Secretary to prescribe the IRGC in its entirety?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman, and the prescription question is always an issue for the Home Secretary. In the decision that she's made today, it's important to stress that it's a process involving all the relevant agencies and their assessment in the activities. But I have to say the attack on RAF bases is disgraceful and totally unacceptable, and the force of the law must bear down on it. She keeps prescription under review. I know it's a long-standing issue that the honourable gentleman has raised.
Tice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that there's a consensus across, I think, the whole House that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, it seems to me there's a sort of a lack of willingness to recognise when negotiations after many years have patently failed to yield results. So will the Foreign Secretary join Reform and myself in thanking the United States and Israel for degrading the Iranian nuclear weapons programme?
Well, I had two conversations with Secretary of State Rubio yesterday, and I hope he would say that we've established a very good working relationship over that period, and he will know that I have a long-standing or longer-standing relationship with Vice President Vance. And to be clear, the United States position is that we are at war with Iran's nuclear program. This was a targeted attack, and it's important to understand their efforts to degrade, but we have not yet had that assessment as to its effectiveness.
Sir Bernard Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It does appear that the House agrees with the government's objective that Iran should never have nuclear weapons, but the government is prepared to will the ends, but not the means. And it begs the question about who is really running the government. Why did Lord Homer's opinion on the legality of military action or UK involvement become public last week? Was it leaked? Was it briefed? And doesn't it demonstrate that the government is paralysed and divided over this question instead of leading from the front?
Foreign Secretary.
No.
Laura Kirk.